morning. Today's Thursday, April 15th, 2020. We're here for a work session, and as always, we're going to start with the pledge allegiance. Temp, can you please take the lead?
10 or 10?
Temp.
Oh, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. We just have one announcement today. All residents are encouraged to participate in the second public participation meeting for the design of the town square, which will take place tonight from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. Meeting credentials can be found on our town website. We are hoping for another great turnout tonight. We look forward to hearing from our residents and having them impact the direction of this study. Remember, this is not your, this is your town square, and we are going to welcome your ideas and your suggestions and your visions, and hopefully we're going to have a great town square. Moving forward, we have
Excuse me 1 second, I just want to announce that we have the litter pickup this Saturday. We do have the chair of the litter committee, anti-litter committee, with us this morning, and we'll talk in more depth, but I do want to remind everybody that we're looking for as many residents as possible and businesses in the town of Riverhead to go out Saturday, and let's get our whole town cleaned up.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Weather's supposed to be good.
Yes,
Yay,
not like today.
but we'll clean in the rain too.
Okay, so we're going to move right into the first agenda item, which is the discussion of the new governor's legislation concerning legalization of marijuana, which was enacted on March 31st, 2021. Parts of the legislation went into effect immediately. And New York now is the 16th state to have legalized marijuana. The 500-page legislation has many components, and they are currently being reviewed by our town attorneys. In short, New Yorkers are now permitted to possess up to 3 ounces of cannabis for recreational purposes, or 24 grams in concentrated forms, which includes oils. New Yorkers are permitted to smoke cannabis at any location where smoking tobacco is permitted. However, New York State can regulate the use of smoking locations, and it will not be permitted in schools, workplaces, or inside a car. Smoking will, however, be permitted wherever cigarette smoking is permitted. However, I urge our town officials and the entire community, if we permit the sale of dispensaries of marijuana along with recreational use here in Riverhead, please support me and to limit locations such as where children are present, our churches, our hospitals, medical facilities, clinics, senior locations, playgrounds, or any other sensitive location in our community. The legislation to use recreational marijuana for adults 21 and over will also allow the growth of 3 mature and 3 immature plants. The state anticipates a yearly tax revenue of $350 million, in addition creating upwards of 60,000 employment opportunities. 4% of the sales revenue will go directly to local governments. This legislation will also expunge the criminal records of all people convicted of various marijuana-related offenses. Each town, village, or city will have the option to opt out of this new legislation. There is no opt-in provision, which indicates that once this law on March 31st became official, we are now we are participants in the legislation. We only have the one option of opting out, and that would be by December 31st, 2021. In other words, we have until the end of the year to indicate that we do not want to participate under this legislation. Town Board, I present to you this legislation and invite discussion. Eventually, we will have to make a decision in favor or against. But this will be a very long process. The entire community must be engaged in this process, and a public hearing will be held. In addition, there is also a possibility of a permissive referendum in this coming November 2nd election, where the community will get a chance to vote on this legislation. I invite the town board to commence a discussion on this matter.
So one of the problems I have with it is, not that I'm against it, but in terms of law enforcement, to try to determine what the level is and how to determine what the level, what's an acceptable level to operate a motor vehicle. Because obviously it impairs judgment, much in the way that alcohol does, and we know what the guidelines are for that. And I don't think it's been developed in terms of knowing how to properly test roadside if a person is under the influence of marijuana. You pull a car over, maybe if it was smoked in the car, you can smell it, sure. Maybe you see evidence of it in the car, okay. But what does that mean? What's the level inside the person? And what level is too high to drive? And that's something, to me, that hasn't been addressed nationwide yet. And I think that's something we need to look very hard at. In terms of having it in town, we know it's going to be, or it already is, legal in New York State for personal consumption, and you're allowed to grow X amount of plants on your property. And I get that, but I'm concerned that when it comes to dispensaries and retail shops selling marijuana, that we know other towns are going to do it around us. And there's going to be money, tax money, coming out of that. And it's something I think we have to look at as a town and say, do we want people driving through Riverhead to buy marijuana, say in Southold or over in Southampton, and we miss an opportunity for good tax money to come into the town because it's legal. It's absolutely legal. It's just a matter of whether you want to have a shop set up in your town or several shops or whatever the case may be, and then your local guidance would have to determine where those shops are. Like Madam Supervisor said, you're not going to put one next to a high school or a school property or somewhere where young children are, a playground. So there's a lot of things to think and consider, and I think we're going to have this discussion for quite some time before we figure out what we're actually going to do. That's my personal opinion.
And that's a concern that many supervisors have raised. If we have Southold dispenses marijuana, Southampton dispenses marijuana, Brookhaven dispenses marijuana, the Shinnecock Indians dispenses marijuana at a lower cost, not taxed, right? It's here.
Right. It's here. We know that.
Yeah,
So do we take advantage of it, or do we say, no, not in our backyard? And that's something we have to look at.
This legislation will not change my life personally one iota, because I don't smoke and I don't care to. However, I do know that there are cases where it is very helpful for people who are ill or have certain conditions. I will say that we had Chamber of Commerce meeting this morning. One of the issues that came up about the tax money, I wasn't sure if it was 4 or 5%, is will there be earmarks that it has to be used for from the state government? That I don't know if that's going to happen or not. If it is, that's something we're going to have to consider very keenly. But this is just the opportunity to open the discussion.
Right.
But I do see both sides of the picture. I am concerned when it comes to children and they're influenced by it. So that being said, let's explore what the governor has put into place around the state and see how it's going to impact our community. This is an important issue.
And Tim, I just want to go back to one of your other points concerning the individuals who can identify the use of marijuana. New York, the county only has 9 certified
Right.
individuals, which is nothing.
Nothing.
To us. We don't
Right.
have one here in Riverhead.
Sure.
And they are very, very highly specialized. There's a lot of legal concerns as to it's smell enough to test somebody, and that should be a whole legislation as far as people's civil rights and protections, especially during car stops, and that creates a whole different component. So I totally agree with that. Ken, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, just to tag off of what Frank was saying, we definitely need to look into public comment, so I would look forward to the public being able to address questions, concerns, and so I'm glad that we do have some time till the end of the year to make these decisions, and they'd be very much a part of the process. One of the things that is the locations are the key, so if we decide to, opt into the program, so as others have mentioned, we definitely have to regulate where the locations of the facilities would be. And as Tim, I totally agree with Tim, so if other towns choose to allow it, and we decide that to protect our residents, if for any reason we feel that we'll be overwhelmed by it and we opt out of it, we are potentially giving up that revenue, because I think that regardless, if someone chooses to use it, they'll go into the, our surrounding towns and so forth to purchase it like it, and then we have to understand if we opt out, we are giving up that revenue as well. So that the opting out, the tax revenue is a significant, if people are gonna choose to utilize it anyway. And then also the training of our police officers, so yes, we are limited on that capacity, so I think that if we determine at a certain point that we are gonna proceed and we're gonna allow it, I think regardless, allowing it, not allowing it, we do need to begin to look into training some of our police officers to be able to do the on-site test, especially for motor vehicles, operating them. So just concerns, but I think the public should definitely be a part of the whole process as we go along to voice the concerns, questions, and I'm glad that we've got some time, so it's not an immediate decision that needs to be made right now, but a lot to look into, to consider.
One of my greatest concerns is the growth of marijuana. Out in the east, out here, we don't have the soil that's conducive for marijuana because our soil is very sandy. And the legislation was classified as a bona fide agricultural growth. Therefore, farms can grow, but we don't have the soil. And that's going to create buildings that are probably won't have windows in order to contain and have the special lighting needed for marijuana. And I don't want to see our town lose its bucolic look. And that's a concern that I, myself, and my counterpart, Scott Russell from Southhold, have shared. That we don't want to see these cinder block buildings across our farms. And that's something that should be addressed because our soil cannot sustain and will not sustain the growth of marijuana. And it's something for us to explore moving forward.
So a couple of things I wanted to address, things that have been brought up already. Obviously it is still illegal to drive under the influence, and we don't have the proper devices at this time to judge, whether someone is under the influence. So I believe the New York Department of Health will be working towards developing devices that are needed for this. As far as the opt-out, I believe believe that if you opt out, that decision can be reversed later. That's just a point that we need to think about. And certainly I'm in agreement that this is a very important topic before our town, and we should have public input on this. We should be hearing from the community, and I think that a good starting place for us would be to get some of the major stakeholders that would be involved in this to a work session and start the discussion at a work session with some stakeholder groups. For example, I know that the Ag Advisory has had this discussion over the years. I think that they're a major stakeholder in all of this. Certainly some business groups, CAP, I used to work with CAP, and this is something that they saw coming down the pike, and they've had a lot of discussions over it, and other groups. So I think a starting place is to have this discussion with stakeholders at the table, and then reach out to our community and, hear from the residents and what people want to see in Riverhead. But I agree that we should look at all angles of this issue.
And Catherine, you are correct. We have until December 31st to opt out, and at any time, we can opt back in. We can reverse it. However, if we do not make a decision past December 31st, 2021, the end of this year, we are considered as being part of the legislation. And of course, we're going to definitely have our stakeholders in here. It's gonna be a long process, and the entire council has to be engaged. And again, the stakeholders, as Catherine mentioned, and eventually we're gonna bring it to a public hearing. And then it looks like, from what we're understanding, from the legal component, it looks like it's gonna be brought up, it's gonna be brought before a permissive referendum. And I just wanna invite, Anne Marie, do you have anything to add to this discussion? Come forward, please.
Before Anne Marie goes, I'd just like to say one more thing. I think the impetus for this legislation by the governor was to sort of abate some of the cases of people who have a couple of joints on them that are pulled over, filling up our jails. And I don't think that's necessarily a wrong move. I think that might have been one of the things that he was looking in his vision of this legislation to do. But there's so many moving parts to this legislation that will impact the community. We really just have to go through it. But I'm interested to hear Anne Marie's comments about the legalities of it, because I don't disagree with the fact that, you know, somebody gets pulled over and has a joint and they're going to spend time in jail because of it. I think part of the penal code needed to be redone or revisited, but I'm welcoming your input on that.
Okay, so it's extensive, and the law, and there are a lot of,
Closer to the mic.
sorry, there are a lot of moving parts. But I just want to highlight from the legal perspective a couple of things for you. To be clear, the opt-out, the deadline date, as the supervisor explained, we are presently in. There is no requirement to opt in, we are in. We may opt out by December 31st, 2021. But in order to do that, so I highlight this to the town board, because in order to do that, you have to adopt a local law by permissive referendum. So you have to keep that in mind regarding that time frame. I think the law was designed, and it reads that way. Why? Because the referendum provides an opportunity for the public to petition the town board to reverse that local law of opting out. Notwithstanding, if you do not opt out, the law says what you may do, and I should have went back, but what you may do regarding adult use and dispensaries and on-site consumption, you may put in rules and regulations regarding time, place, and manner. Obviously, if you opt out, there's no need to put any of those restrictions. Also, I should have started with this. There's so many parts to this law, but what the law is really focusing on is 3 different significant marijuana issues: medical cannabis, adult use cannabis, cannabinoid hemp, and hemp extracts. Mixed and commingled in there are the criminal laws, the quote, I'll call them non-criminalization laws related to that. The supervisor's correct, and there's really a lot of significant parts to the law. And it's very interesting because the law talks about, in its purpose and intent, one of the purposes is to protect and prevent access to cannabis by those under the age of 21 years old. But what's really interesting is when you get in the weeds of the law and you start looking at the criminal provisions, part 222.25.35, and you start going through those provisions, it's hard to believe it really is designed to protect those under 21 when you look at the enforcement. And with respect to the individual growing and possessing, I just really should go through some of those with you because they really are very interesting. So, an individual is permitted to plant, harvest, or dry at their private residence, as the supervisor said, 3 mature plants, 3 immature plants per person, or a maximum of 6 mature plants and 6 immature plants per residence. An individual can possess 3 ounces, but they may store in their residence 5 pounds. That's a lot of marijuana. And then when you tie that to the criminal law provisions, the criminal law provisions basically criminalize possession of over 3 ounces. What the laws also state, and there are laws that if you sell to anyone under 21, then under 18, and there's different, misdemeanor classes for those. But what the law actually states is that if I possess marijuana, I'm allowed to give it to someone over 21. So it's kind of interesting because when you think about it, if I'm able to store 5 pounds in my house, what's the chance or the likelihood that I'm going to be dispensing that potentially to others? Marijuana, I'm not a proponent against marijuana. I'm definitely a proponent personally of medical marijuana, and I understand the needs medically for a lot of individuals. With alcohol, we all agree that for school children, alcohol is visible. It's in a bottle, so when you pass it, you see it. Marijuana is much more discreet as far as transferring and giving. So it's really important for the town board to actually really get into and do the comparison of the law with the criminal law. But again, you're only really being asked to opt out. The opt-out pertains to really the adult use on-site dispensaries and consumption. That's what the opt-out is. It's that provision. It's not the remainder of the provisions. It's simply that provision.
And just to put it into perspective, a gallon baggie full of marijuana without seeds and stems, which are the heavier components, is only 6 ounces.
Yeah.
So it is a tremendous amount.
We're going to have to teach our children not to take brownies from strangers, number one. But all kidding aside, it's going to be easier realistically for people under the age of 21 to get marijuana because you can grow it. You can grow it in your yard. I mean, most kids can't build a still in their backyard and make alcohol, but you certainly can throw some seeds in the ground in the woods somewhere and grow some weed and have it for your own use. So there's a lot to this. There's a lot to this.
And to Anne Marie's point, we are really handcuffed on this issue anyway. Our only choice in this matter is to opt out of the revenue stream. Other than that, everything else is in place.
Right. Well, and I will say, for the dispensaries and on-site consumption, that's the opt-out. I will state there is slight room for the town to,
Good.
quote, put in certain regulations and enforcement regulations regarding the others, but the law makes it absolutely clear that none of those laws that you put in place
Stephen here?
can have an effect that prohibits what is permitted under those provisions of law in the bill, in the law now.
On my side,
So you're I mean, you're correct.
on my
But I'm
And-
gonna disagree, I don't think that, I don't think marijuana is more discreet than alcohol.
Marijuana restrictions,
I
just
mean,
get one copy,
certainly,
it's all a mess.
you know, it has a strong smell, alcohol can
You
be
know what I'm
put in
talking
any
about, next to the
container,
print.
so I have to disagree on that, I think
Well, I
they're,
didn't,
they're
to be
probably
clear,
equal.
I didn't say to ingest. I said to pass.
Can be carried in a pocket, in other words, as opposed
Correct.
to a container holding
Pass.
outside.
You know, I can,
Harder to hide
I
a
can
bottle than it
slide,
is to
I
place
can
something
slide.
in.
People who are gonna hide things are gonna hide things. I just don't think one or the other, just thinking about
Okay.
that.
It's gonna be difficult, because, I mean, kids are gonna be kids, and marijuana can be baked into brownies, into cookies, into cakes. You can go to school with your lunch and have cookies, and nobody's gonna know whether it's laced with weed or not. And you can walk down the hall eating a chocolate chip cookie, and you're getting high going to your class. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how this plays out. That's where I have some issues with it, because that's where you're 21, you want to make a decision, that's your decision. Under the age, not so much. And this is going to be an issue that's going to become because of this law.
So the revenue share for the dispensaries and on-site consumption, 9% goes to the state, and 4% would go to the local government where it's located. If you opt out, you're not entitled to that 4%, you will not receive that 4%.
Right.
In addition, Councilwoman Kent was correct when she said we could opt out and then at a future time opt in. But know this, at a future time when you opt in, you're in now for good, because the opt-out date doesn't change. So if you opt in after the opt-out date, you're in for good.
Can we limit the number of dispensaries we have in the town by our local ordinance?
To a certain
Yeah,
extent.
I think,
To a
I am
certain extent,
confident,
not completely,
Yes.
though.
I am confident by the language of the law regarding time, place, and manner, we can.
I just wanted to mention, I just had it pulled up, and I'll share this with the board and we'll put it online. Oyster Bay created a local law, March 31st also with some of these restrictions. And they are the locations are included, and it looks like there's postage of signs, vapor shops, marijuana shops restriction, hookah pipe, marijuana dispensary, electronic cigarettes. So they took an approach, I haven't fully read this, but we know that it does exist, and we'll share it. It might be something that we might want to consider.
Good.
And I'll, David, can you make sure that this goes on the website eventually, and every town board member gets? And that was enacted the same day that the legislation was enacted. So they were waiting, obviously, and the town board was on top of it then.
So I don't want to take up the time and go through all of the different facets, but I had represented to the town board, I think, last work session, that I would take notes on the law and then scan my document and get it to all of you. So I tried to write really legible.
Well, the conversation started, and it's a very long
agree.
conversation. I also want to point out that we have here today with us Assemblywoman Jody Giglio, and she has been a vocal, has shared her vocal points on this. And did you want to come forward and add to our discussion, Assemblywoman?
Thank you, yeah.
Feel
Welcome
more
back.
comfortable sitting
Welcome
over here,
back.
Jody?
Good morning. I love seeing you all here, and I miss this place so much, really. It's been a little bit crazy up in Albany trying to get the budget adopted, but I was glad that the marijuana bill was a standalone bill, and we were able to debate it on the floor and have a discussion about it. And I know that there are many questions, and Anne Marie is correct in that the opt-out is for the retail sales and also for the on-site consumption. One of the questions that I had asked is if the referendum proved that the taxpayers of Riverhead Town wanted the sale of marijuana and didn't want to opt out, that it's required that they smoke inside of a facility. They can't be just outside smoking on the sidewalk or on the corner. As far as what Tim's question was with how do they recognize it, there are drug recognition experts. The supervisor is correct. Suffolk County has 9. The town of Southampton has 1. They used to have 2. It's an extensive training. It's a 3-week training. They go for 2 weeks to do the recognizing, the physiological exercise of determining whether or not someone is on any drug. And it could be an opioid, it could be marijuana, it could be whatever drug is out there, heroin. So they go through a 2-week course for that. Then there's a 1-week course where they actually go into drug clinics where people are using, and it's up to the officer to determine what drug they're on in order to pass the class. I did ask the question if there was funding from the state for the training of these drug recognition experts, is what they're called. And they said that there will be funding for that. I asked for it to be done sooner than later, before the bill is adopted or the people decide to opt in or opt out, so that our officers are ready to recognize anybody that may be under the influence on the side of the road. So right now, I mean, with the number of people that we have in Suffolk County and only 10 drug recognition experts, it's going to be very difficult when an officer pulls somebody over, because if they smell marijuana, just the smell of marijuana is not probable cause to bring somebody in. There was a case in Colorado where marijuana is legal, and they actually smelt the marijuana, and then when they sent the canine in, the canine found 2 kilos of cocaine. But because the dog smelt the marijuana, they couldn't, it was dismissed because that was the probable cause for the 2 kilos of cocaine.
Poisonous tree.
So it's, you can opt out of the retail and the on-site consumption, but you cannot opt out of the growing. So any grower can apply to the state commission for a license to grow anywhere in Riverhead, even if the sales and on-site consumption is an opt-out. The resolution has to be put on the ballot for a question as to whether or not people want to opt out 3 months prior to the election. So the election in November, you have 3 months prior to that election to get a letter from the town clerk over to the Board of Elections asking for that to be put on the ballot for a question. The canines, and in speaking to Morris, who is our canine, he said that the canines, they stopped training the canines in the smell of marijuana a couple of years ago, because all of those canines that were trained in marijuana have to be decommissioned. They can't be retrained not to smell marijuana, so they need new canines. So the new canine that you have hasn't been trained in the smell of marijuana yet. So they were holding off in anticipation of this legislation, and then there will be training for the dogs also. The town, if the taxpayers decide that they want the sale of retail sale and on-site consumption in the town can create legislation, as Oyster Bay did, about the hours of operation and, where they can exist in your zoning. So as long as you permit it, and then, yes, you will be eligible for funding. They're really targeting the majority of the funding to poorer communities and towns. So, you might be eligible for a little more than anybody else, but, and then the last thing, it says that it can be within 500 feet of schools and 200 feet of churches under the SLA. So that's another matter that was a big concern of mine, especially in the history here with windows and the schools being open and somebody complaining about a wood-burning stove or a stove in the backyard. So, just some things to keep in mind, and I'm available if you have any questions or if you need anything. We do have a letter going out, but I think it's important to start those conversations with the public now so that you can get it on the ballot in November to opt out, and then, otherwise, if you don't put it on the ballot to opt out and the taxpayers vote for it, then, as Anne Marie said, it's automatically as of right.
Oh, great. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's so good to see you all today.
Good.
Same here.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you. Anyone else? You good?
I'm good for now. I mean, we're going to have much more conversation about this.
Great. All right, so we're gonna move on forward. Our next discussion today concerns code enforcement. As we know, and unfortunately, back in the beginning of the pandemic, the Chief Justice, Lawrence Marks, along with the Governor of the state of New York, they issued an executive order limiting enforcement and limiting evictions. And unfortunately, the order was recently extended again. People cannot apply for evictions, and that's somehow not allow us to do the full job that we want to do concerning code enforcement. However, we have not stopped. I've met personally with our code enforcement team, our code enforcement attorney, and we have issued an increase of summonses. We are in the process of identifying homes. We urge anyone who feels that there is an overcrowded home to please go onto the town website. You can make the complaint anonymous, you can identify, or you can call code enforcement and they will take the complaint through the phone. There's been some enhancement. We have moved the code enforcement officers and have provided larger quarters for them. We're in the process of hiring at least another code enforcement officer. We are looking into funding. They are going to receive another car, another computer, and I thank Catherine Kent. She has also worked on changing some of the on the code to help reflect that we're going to have more stringent codes here concerning fines and housing, and so we have here today the code enforcement, and Catherine, would you chime in when it gets up to your chapter on your code enforcement? Richie Downs, can you please come up?
Yeah, and just before starting, I do want to say that, you know, I did ask to put this on the work session several weeks ago because we have been working in code revision to tighten up the code in regards. This is actually something I've been working on for 2 years, trying to get the code tightened up. This is a real issue in Riverhead. This is a real concern of our community, and it relates directly to the safety of the people. It's really important that we, you know, have stringent fines, which is something that we're talking about. It's very important that our code enforcement department have the tools that they need. This was actually you know, a campaign promise that you made. This was a very divisive issue within the community, and I think even despite COVID, you know, I don't think COVID necessarily holds us up from tightening up things and giving our department the tools that they need. So this is something I've been working on, I want to continue working on, and when we get to that part, I want to chime in about the code revisions.
And I also would like to add that Richie Downs, you've been tremendous during COVID. We sat down, we've worked through the concerns, identifying homes, what type of summonses. We changed the hours of code enforcement, and yes, in 2019, there was, before this board, before I took office, there was a resolution put up to change the code, and the fines were they were actually illegal, $10,000 first offense. You can't do that to the public, and of course you had to go back, and I'm glad that now it finally resurfaced a few years later. These signs are more appropriate. They're also very similar to other towns, and we also going to adopt the state law, which is going to limit some of the confusion. Our town code, prior before I took office, did not have a clear designation, and it's been discussed constantly, and I'm glad that today we're bringing this to a height, and you're going to have those tools that we all need, and hopefully eventually we'll change the code and we'll adopt a resolution. Richie, can you go forward, please?
Well, those fines that we put up a couple of years ago, unfortunately, the rest of the board didn't support it. I was trying to move forward with stricter fines. That legislation was actually put together by one of our attorneys in our town attorney's office, and I find it hard to believe that they would, you know, put something forward that was illegal. And I will express my disappointment that I did ask to put this on the work session, and I was not consulted on this. This was work that I have been doing for a very long time. But now that we're here, I certainly will chime in on all of the things that I have been working on, because as I said, this is such an important issue for Riverhead.
Yeah, and just before you go forward, we do have, and I want to introduce, we do have Ken Rothwell.
Yes, thank you.
He's been meeting with code enforcement
That's kind of
concerning.
what, one of the things that led us here today. So let me just first say that.
Wait, I'm sorry, just one quick question. We did work on this with Eric.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping Eric would be here since he also worked on this with us, or? Eric
I
wasn't
think he's in
invited?
his office, if you want to give him a call.
I feel like Eric should be here. He helped work on the legislation.
So just so the public is fully aware, we do have a code enforcement liaison, which
Yes.
works directly with code enforcement and the attorneys to enhance support, give them what they need. And then we also have a code enforcement revision, a code revision, and our councilwoman is the liaison to code revision. You have to work together, you give the tools that you need, you support your staff, you make sure that they're trained, you hire them, and then when there's a code revision on any of the town code, Catherine is the liaison. So it's good to see two liaisons working together for one mission, the same mission.
And it is important, I agree wholeheartedly that it's important for us all to work together. And aside from code revision, this is something that I've been working on, code enforcement, because the situations that a lot of people are in and the situations that have been created within Riverhead with the way some of the landlords have set things up, and the unsafe situations have been, terrible for the people living there, terrible for the community, and very upsetting for the neighbors. I mean, just as a teacher coming in and seeing some of the pictures that I've seen from code enforcement of the situations that people are in is horrendous. And we get constant complaints from people in the community of what's going on down the street from them. So aside from code revision, this is an issue that's very important to me as well. Thank you.
Catherine, 2 years ago, I put in with code revision I gave legislation to code revision about cars being parked on front lawns.
Right.
Whatever happened to that?
Well, I can
We had a
ask, I'm
public
gonna,
hearing last year.
right.
Right?
And we had comments back, and I know I circulated proposed changes to that legislation. It's funny you mentioned that, because I actually saw it last night. So if that's something we want to bring forward, because there was questions about flag lots. There was questions
Right.
about other issues that have been raised by constituents, and were expressed by former councilperson Giglio at that meeting. So I went back and I looked at the minutes, and I made some changes to the legislation, which I think I circulated in October or November of last year, to see if the board wanted to go back to the public hearing.
Okay.
I think it would have to, if we either need to go back to code revision, or we can bring it right back to you either way.
Well, yeah, and thank you, Bob. We did work on that, Tim. I'm glad you brought it up. We did look at that initially when we were starting, and I talked about this with the board before. There were some concerns about whether it would end up, people putting big driveways in front of their house as opposed to like parking on the grass. But we looked at what other towns did, and we worked on it a long time, and we did present something to the board. But Bob, maybe you can circulate that same thing again to the board, and then we can decide where the board wants to go from there.
Yeah, actually, I just had to remind myself, because last night I was looking at it, it went around to the board on September 21st. Actually, it maybe didn't go to the entire board, and I apologize for that. So that did go around, I think, I actually emailed it back to myself this morning as a reminder, so I can simply forward what I sent to all of you and get that discussion moving ahead.
Please
Matter
do,
of fact,
so we definitely
Okay.
can work on that at the
Yeah.
work session and discuss it.
That
So,
will
Officer Downs,
definitely work.
thank you for coming today. We had a very productive meeting with the entire code enforcement staff this week, along with the supervisor. And I just want to say right from the beginning that, COVID-19 has put incredible restrictions, for the work that you do over the past year by the governor's orders, such as no evictions and so forth. But I do want to let people know that there has been a great effort on behalf of you and your staff. So I understand that we've had an increase in summons over the past year, which is great, and certainly an enhancement of the different summonses that have been written. So we're still, even during COVID, with the restrictions, we are still moving forward. We are addressing the complaints. But there's also an effort to prepare you best so that when certain restrictions are removed, and so that we're ready to proceed with those evictions and so forth. We know that the sheriff's department's gonna be overwhelmed, so we just wanted to be right there in the top to proceed forward. We talked with your staff, and one of the difficult hurdles was the redundancy of certain work, meaning similar summons written to the same individuals continuously again and again. And that has a lot to do also with the fine, where just the fines are so minimal that it just becomes a cost of doing business, and it's not really an incentive to actually end the actions that are taking place. And so by increasing the fines, which comes into addressing Chapter 217 and also Chapters 263, about, the number one and 217, the fines, and then Chapter 263 about the actual permits and regulations and so forth. I'll commend former Councilman Jody Giglio, our Assemblywoman is here, and she actually had worked on this in 2019 to help get started when there was some revisions within the code. But I understand that and she gave great guidance on bringing it, not just us revising our codes, but going to enhance them to state codes. So we matched New York State. And with that, by going into changing our codes to match the state code, that allows us to end all the inconsistencies that were taking place within the work, but also we no longer will have to continue update our own town code, because it's providing that the state updates their codes, then we follow right in sync. So it keeps it moving in the progress as the state outlines the codes. I know that those have been outdated for years, but going back to strictly code enforcement, I think with the increase of fines and so forth, it allows you guys to respond to different complaints instead of the same similar places, the same similar homes, the same landlords that we're having difficulty with over the years. So it allows you to be more productive in other work, and so we certainly agreed upon that, and there's certainly abundance of workload. We're committed to getting you a fourth code enforcement officer. We know we're working within the budget to set a new car, just to be able to be out there in the field and to work it. We've got your new office space, and it looks like when I sat in your office, you're ready for the fourth code enforcement officer to be with you.
That's right. If you build it, they will come.
Yes. But those are things, just the enhancement of your overall unit, I think we're going to be progressive, and it was great to get insight from yourself and your officers as well. So I'll introduce now Officer Richard Downs, if you want to kind of outline some of your thoughts.
If I just want to add, Rich, if you give me one, thank you, and I'm sure that assigning you to this, to the code enforcement as a liaison, I'm sure you're going to do a great job. And this is your first introduction, and you did a lot of work, I know, since you got here towards working with code enforcement. I commend you for your work and working with my office. I just want to also add that last year, 5 Supreme Court actions were started. In the last prior years, we had 0. So we have that, and I think, Eric, there was going to be another one filed this week. Was it filed?
It should be filed today.
It'll be filed today. So as of today, we're going to have 6 Supreme Court actions pending, and this is movement in to address overcrowded housing. And we're going to continue, we're going to be vigilant, we're going to explore every avenue that we can. And again, the summons increases, and now that we're going to the state level, and maybe after, Richie, you're finished, our Assemblywoman who's here, can we call you up again? Because I know you were a big proponent of going towards the state law after he finishes. Okay, we will. So good morning, Rich, and thank you for coming.
Right,
Good morning,
and I have
everybody.
and I have some specific things I wanted to, well, because this is so important and I want to make sure we're getting it right, I do have some specific questions to firm up a couple of the areas that we worked on.
Okay, yeah, sure. So basically, the housing code that we were utilizing in the past was outdated. I think it was from 1968. So we needed to be more in line with the state code, because in January of 2003, or revisions to the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention Code, any codes in place after that date which were inconsistent or more stringent than our codes got superseded by the state. So that basically set our codes, because we had a lot of different inconsistencies in our code. that weren't in line with the state. So by doing this revision, we're coming into where the state is exactly. Also, when the state does a revision, we don't have to watch the code because we're still in line with the state, okay? So with that in place, we're going to be able to enforce the code a lot better than we were before. Where we were sometimes hesitant in the past to write certain sections of our housing code because they weren't in line with the state, now we don't have that problem. So, and in addition to that, we've also raised the fines. So the fines go from, they used to be $250, now it starts at $750 to $1,500, I believe, for the first offense, and it carries on through the third offense, which is up to $10,000.
Okay.
So, I mean, there are landlords out there that know the rules, so it should be no surprise that if they are routinely, having violations on their houses, that they could be hit with a large fine.
And it will address the fact that when you have a landlord that's perhaps, and I'll just make up, renting a house in Wading River and they're found out without, operating without a permit and they're in violation, and a summons is issued, and then there's, that same landlord owns a house in Jamesport and does the same thing. We're addressing the fact that once a violation is written, it should be known to that individual, that landlord, that you've been advised, of the permit process.
Correct.
And that going to a secondary home in Jamesport should not be a first summons, first being, it should go to the individual, to the landlord itself. And so to also help stop the redundancy of the same thing, saying, well, I didn't know, you can only use that once,
Yeah.
And so we have multiple houses, and even though they're multiple locations, they should not be considered individual summonses. The locations should be tied together to the existing landlord, so that you're already advised in one location, so advise all the others that you need the permit, you need to go through the process.
And to add on that, I think if, we do have landlords that own multiple houses in the town. And we do have landlords that often have the same similar violations on their houses. I call those frequent flyer landlords,
Yeah.
But once they get one set where they have to pay $1,500 or $5,000 fine, I think that's going to readjust their thinking.
Right.
All we have to
and
do is
I'm-
look at the court calendar, and you'll see the amount of recidivism of the same names over and over and over again.
Correct.
So you're absolutely correct.
And
Hit
it's not
them
done as a-
hard like that.
And this is not done as a revenue generator, it's a safety protocol, is far and first, at most, is that to make sure that all these homes are equipped with the safety devices and the outline process. That's the number one reason.
Right, and certainly it's a safety issue. And as Rich said, one reason that we started all this work too is that there was a lot of going back and forth between the two codes. And this will hopefully streamline and make your work so much easier because we are aligning with the state code.
Yeah.
However, I just want to make sure in some of the areas, I mean, certainly when we're looking at these codes, we want to make sure that we're going with the strongest code that we can because this has been such a safety issue in Riverhead. And also, I do want to mention that Eric did a lot of work on this as well. And we have been asking for quite a while to go to Supreme Court, and I'm really glad that that's happening. So I do want to look at one section. I don't know, Eric, did you bring a copy of it with you?
I have a copy here. if you-
Okay,
if you
great.
need some.
All right, so I'm looking at 21745. I just have a few sections that, because we had looked at this, but I looked at it more in some few sections. So in this part, it says it applies to all existing residential and non-residential. Are you looking at where I am?
Yes.
21745.
Yeah, I'm following you.
So, does this apply to, in our code, it used to say, trailer parks, mobile homes, labor camps, et cetera.
Excuse me, Catherine, I
Does
think
it
the whole
still,
board,
does
Catherine,
it still
hold on a
apply
second.
to mobile
Catherine?
homes?
Catherine, can you just hold on a second? I think the whole board should have that code.
Yeah, I don't have that, I was
We
trying
don't
to
have
follow
that
along,
code,
yeah.
and if you're gonna read it independently, why don't we, can you make a copy of that, and we'll just take a pause, a copy of the code, so the
Yeah, you
whole
can
board
take
can
this.
be informed?
Oh, sure. I mean, I didn't know, if I had tried to put it on the agenda, I would have given a
Oh,
code.
you did?
I did forward a copy of it
It is
to
on the
you.
agenda, and you spoke to
Okay.
council members
To
last night
quickly
about it.
answer your question,
So, all right.
regard to,
Go ahead.
to the mobile homes, yes, it does, it's going to apply to the
Okay.
mobile homes also.
Although, we did strike it out of there, so how
That's
does that
because,
still work?
that's because our prior housing code wasn't in line with HUD requirements. So the state code is in line with HUD requirements, so therefore, we'd be fine with any enforcement on a mobile home.
Pertains to all dwellings.
All dwellings.
Okay.
yeah.
Also, in that same section, in that same paragraph, it talks about occupants. So in this statement, does it make the occupant responsible for the repairs and the fines? I want to make sure that, also, can we go after the tenant?
I believe we define owner
I didn't see that, actually.
and occupancy. And we define tenant, so,
Just wanted
Yeah.
you to clarify that.
yeah. So you're asking if we can make the tenants responsible for any violations within
Yes.
a structure?
I mean, if possible, can the tenants be responsible?
I mean,
not
generally
for-
speaking, we don't usually write the tenants as
Yeah, we
just
try
a...
to go after the landlords, but sometimes,
But yeah, in some cases where probably the landlord, they did it in the dark of night, you know, they created a bedroom inside of the living room or something like that, or they put people in a basement. If we can make that determination that the tenant did that, I think we do have the authority to write the tenant in those instances.
so, next I wanted to look at 21754 allows for an extension. So two things, should the extension be limited to a time period, say, to extension not to be more than the number of days? Also wanted to ask about the extension there.
I thought this was
Any,
addressed.
it seems like
before.
any granted extension
Yeah.
should be in writing. Just wanted to see if we should have an extension in writing.
Yeah, you know, I thought this was addressed during your code revision meetings.
It was,
We
but
didn't
I
know
wanted to
about
bring
this
it to the
before.
whole board. These are my only two things.
Okay.
I have like one more
All right,
thing.
and we'll get the legislation on it, I'll have it.
Do you want to pause for a moment, just a little?
Yeah,
Why don't we
we can
just
discuss
pause?
that at another time if you want, because
It should
me
be.
and Eric have to talk about it. I mean, the state, I think what the state sets forth, I mean, the times for compliance, and it's in the state executive law.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what we're referring to here.
Okay, last question, you might know this one offhand.
Yes.
How is it decided when criminal penalties are imposed and when a civil action is taken? How do we come to that determination?
That's probably going to be a case-by-case basis, depending upon what we find. Routinely now, when we find these overcrowded situations where there's attic occupancies, accessory structures being occupied, such as sheds, unfinished basements, those are probably going to be the ones that we're going to want to go to the Supreme Court on. And I think Eric will welcome that.
Yes, and I want to thank you.
With open
that-
arms.
And I want to thank you every time you feel
Not
okay.
exactly open arms.
Yeah.
Well, I think anytime we go to Supreme Court, let's face it, it sets an example for all those, let it be a lesson to all those others that are, you know, doing these illegal things, that we're taking a hard line on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rich,
Okay.
maybe while we're pausing here, just explain a little bit about the 6 cases that are going to Supreme Court. That's not just like writing 6 tickets and taking it off to court. There's an investigation that goes into this whole process. I think many people out there are not
Yeah.
all that familiar with what happens, and I don't want you to give up secrets,
No,
but there's
I don't think
a
I'll
lot
be
of-
giving up any secrets.
There's a
but-
lot of information, there's a lot of investigation, there's a lot of surveillance, there's a lot of different things that go into making a Supreme Court case. And my understanding is not every case is really Supreme Court worthy. So
Correct.
when you say you have 6 cases in, that's a lot.
Yeah.
People are saying, oh, it's only
Yeah.
6. No,
It's a lot of work, and Eric can probably
And
elaborate on
there
that.
are dozens of other cases that are in court on a local level,
Yep.
but only only certain select ones are gonna go to the Supreme Court.
right.
And I think that's just important for the residents to know that a lot goes into it, and they're not a dime a dozen.
Thank
And,
you, Devin.
what
Yep.
comes out of it is good stuff, so, and it puts everybody else on notice that we're coming
right.
after them.
Yeah,
And
So
the
let's say-
penalties.
Let's say an
are- the-
owner is not compliant after 30 days and not meeting deadlines. So,
well, they could be fined,
is that
yep, up to
does that
$1,000 a
constitute
day.
the first, second, and third offense, or the second and third?
No, that
offense?
would be, as far as the penalties are concerned, that'd be the first offense, yeah. So if you're in violation, a notice of violation or an order to remedy, and you didn't comply with that order to remedy, we issue a ticket. The penalties provisions would apply to the first offense, so. Unless we had to go back and they didn't comply, and we had to write a second set of tickets for the same thing, so.
Right, that's what I was wondering about.
Right.
All right, well, and let me say that I appreciate the work that you're both doing on this.
Thank
I think
you.
it's good stuff.
And I just want to circle back to what Tim said. These penalties that the court imposed are much higher, and that sends a message. And so we will
Absolutely.
continue. We know, Eric, we thank you for the hard work in bringing these 6 cases as of today before the court. And anything that is flagrant, we trust, Rich, you are the chief investigator here, and I know you know how to identify.
I
what-
just got promoted.
You just got. Well, I want to keep you, I
Write
want to
that
keep you encouraged. Your next title, okay, so.
Eric,
okay.
We, hold on,
I
Catherine,
did
I'm
bring, I'm
speaking.
almost done. I did bring Eric in because he handles this, he's the legal part of this. Eric, was there anything that we didn't cover or that you want to
Yeah,
add?
hold on a
or that
second.
you
I-
wanna
Catherine-
piggyback on?
I was just finishing a conversation with,
Oh, right.
okay, and then you, Eric can come on.
Sure.
So Rich, going back, I know that it is a lot of work, but if you see anything that's really flagrant, and I know from law enforcement, and Tim, I could tell you, there are times you go and you go, oh my God, what do we do here? And
Yeah.
in those cases, I also want to note that you issued a search warrant on a
Correct.
flagrant home. Can you just take a minute and describe that home?
Well, we had multiple complaints at a residence over on Rayner Avenue that we were receiving a lot of activity on. We were having problems gaining entry, so we had to do some surveillance there, and we got some information to get ourselves a search warrant. And that warrant turned up that there was a family occupying an illegal accessory structure, which was a garage, that didn't have any proper egress, no smoke detectors. And in addition to that, there was some family that was living in an RV in the back. So they had a makeshift septic system in the back hooked up to a dry well. So it wasn't safe, and we shut that place down.
And there were children
Correct.
living under those
Yeah.
circumstances,
Yeah.
and that's what makes this so
Absolutely.
dire to address, knowing that these are the conditions that our children were living under.
Yep.
Well, and I know we've seen pictures of people in attics with extension cords and hot plates and
Yep.
just, a fire hazard nightmare. So anyway, just to go back, Eric, you had worked on this as well. I wanted to see if you had any points we missed or that you want to bring up.
Well,
Rich,
not
can you
really.
let-
I think
You want to come to the mic? Sorry.
I think Rich pretty much hit everything in all the questioning. The substance of this is really, I have to give credit to Rich. He came up with most of it. I just put the legal
promoted.
spin on it and made it look good so that it would fit into our town code well. But I do really think it's an important thing to implement for the benefit of our code enforcement officers on the streets, and just to sort of get us better in line with where the state is on these building the minimum standards of housing structures. And excited about the fines and excited to see how that impacts the future conduct of certain landlords we have here in town.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, from a law enforcement component, usually when you have your code tight, you know what you're doing, you're following the state guidelines, and you're imposing the fines, usually there is correction in that respect. And I look forward to seeing the corrections here. Again, we need the public to help us. If you know of any homes, there are different avenues. You can call my office if you need to. I know just recently I got a call from one, and it was quite disturbing, the circumstances, and we did send, in this one, we had to send the police department over, and the matter was corrected. They took the tents down, the accessory building overnight, and the person was actually frightened as to what may have happened, and it's good to see that that is gonna work. And again, thank you for your good work.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that I spoke to Councilman Rothwell, and he just wanted me to give a quick update on what we're doing right now,
Okay,
currently.
absolutely.
So I put some little bullet points together to show you what we've been doing. So, you know, we met with our prior code liaison, which was Supervisor Aguirre, on instances, and we've discussed some things that that we've implemented. We organized and put together an overcrowded housing task force, which initiative, which you know, outlines roles and responsibilities with a mission statement for us. We've opened lines of communication with the police department further.
Good.
So we've also designated 2 officers, which is Officer Soto and Officer Buckner, to early shifts. So they're out there at 5 o'clock in the morning, you know. They're looking for those lights in the basement windows, and they're double checking it with the building department to make sure if they have a, you know, a CO for a finished basement, okay? So those are some of the things we do. We designed and implemented new code referral forms. This is good for intercommunication with the police department. So the police department will have an online fillable PDF form on their laptop, which they can fill out right there. So in other words, if they go into a house and they see a situation of an overcrowded or basement occupancy, they can fill that out right on their laptops, and it'll get streamlined right over to us. Okay? So we also were taking statements from patrol officers who observe code violations during their tours, because often they'll go into a house and they'll see something. And we transfer those statements to a form of affidavits that we use in court. So if we have a case going and a police officer sees something, he goes to an aided case, and he sees something, we'll bring them in and we'll take a statement, and we'll use those statements in court. And we continue to communicate serious infractions with the town attorney and the deputy town attorney with regard to the Supreme Court actions. And that's, you know, basically it, so.
Rich, I hate to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
can you give an approximate number of summonses that have been issued in the past year?
The past year, well, I could tell you in the past year, since the pandemic, and we were slowed down a little bit with the pandemic because of gaining entry to buildings. That put us on a little bit of a 6-month hold, you know, till we got that all figured out. But we've investigated over 1,000 complaints since then, so since 2020 on. Ticket-wise, I can run the numbers. I think we've issued in upwards of 500 to 600 tickets.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was going to be about that.
Right.
That's just, I mean, I don't think the common residents understand all the work that goes in, like I said, with the Supreme Court case. But these are just other issues that are mind-boggling when you think that 4 code enforcement officers are out there handling this, so
Yeah, yeah.
kudos to you and your staff.
Yeah, and we look forward to working with Councilman Rothwell now as the code enforcement liaison. Our meeting went well, and he's got some prior code enforcement experience, so.
Yes, and that's why he was put on there. I didn't know if you knew that, Tim.
I did not
He
know
has
that.
a
Officer
prior
Downs and I both come from Brookhaven Town Code Enforcement.
That's right.
I won't say how-
Don't
I won't
tell
say how
anybody.
long ago, because it'll date my age, but.
So I wanted
Well,
to-
we're glad you came to Riverhead and learned how to do it the right way.
So I am glad you mentioned having the police officers observe, because I know that's one thing that we talked about in the past. You know, it gets more eyes on things.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
sometimes, you know, I know on some code enforcement issues, it's a matter of having to sit and watch, and we don't actually have the manpower always to do that.
Yeah.
So this just gets more eyes on things and make sure that we're more diligent.
Yeah, there was
I
some
think
good
that's a good
ideas
thing.
that came up, and that was one of them, and
Yep.
now we put it on their laptops, so there's no excuse for taking out a pen, so now.
Rich, and thank you for creating the form and to putting it on digitalizing it. That's very important because it's easily accessible.
Yep.
Those forms, believe it or not, in law enforcement, they're called intelligence report. So
Yeah.
if somebody sees, let's say, a drug sale, or somebody sees a code violation, the officer, very briefly, they're very short, it just identifies the location, identifies the observations. Usually a lot of it is check-off boxes, and just submits that, and it's a form of intelligence, and I'm glad to see that our code enforcement department is really moving forward within a year and a half, and I know you were 6 months were tied down because of the governor's orders, but you didn't stop working during those 6 months, and
Yeah.
I thank you, and I'm very impressed how quickly you got this form completed, because now we're gonna have some more intelligence. And that serves a purpose, not only to notify code enforcement, but also it helps you build your case
Yep.
eventually, because that's a law enforcement observation.
Yeah,
And
they're the
that can
boots on
be
the ground.
used.
They're the boots on the ground,
Yeah,
so they
boots
see a
on the
lot.
ground, and that will build your case when you get another complaint and say, we have 2 independent observations. And it's great that you're working with the law in this regard, and again, thank you for completing the form and making it happen here. And so this code enforcement is really moving forward. I commend you. You are now going into, Riverhead is actually moving in a great directions, and within the next month, you're gonna have everything that you need.
I know,
And,
there was a little bit of a hiring freeze, I think, last year, so now we can get back to it.
There was a hiring freeze there. That was the.
That
and
was
it's-
you got that in
my
there.
final dig.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
and that was a good one, because we have had discussions about it.
We had a
in the
hiring freeze, so
department.
we couldn't hire
There
him.
was a
And-
hiring freeze from the governor,
Yeah.
from the county executive, and obviously through the towns. And now we're actually moving forward. And Ken, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure so that we're kind of on the express track going forward, so we've got, Eric here together also with you, Rich, so you guys and Catherine worked on it. Can we confirm that based on the revisions right now, in terms of addressing chapter 217, you guys are comfortable with that, with the current revisions, and we're ready to move that forward? I think, so you would agree with that, right, both of you?
Yeah,
Okay, and Catherine? And
Yeah,
then-
I mean, I just want to firm up, I want to firm up just those few questions that I had. And thank you, Ken, and I am glad that, I did reach out several weeks ago to put this on the agenda, because it actually got things moving, and when we all work together on things, it certainly is better for the town.
Yeah, and it's great. 2 things were put up. Code enforcement, the progress, the process, that's great, and code revision. And it's great to see that 2 areas came together, and this town is moving forward with code enforcement. Thank you both, and have a great day.
you too, thank you.
Just to remind the residents again, they can file a complaint anonymously through our town website, so you don't have to give your name up, you don't have to get involved. You see something, say something, go online and make a complaint.
Yeah, we'll look into any complaint that we receive.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Eric and Rich.
Great,
Thank you,
Eric.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, too, for attending our sessions the other day,
Yes.
sitting quietly over there.
All
So-
right, that's so great to see progress in this respect. Thank you, everyone. Next, we were gonna have Christy Verity from the bid. Tim, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, the bid was looking to do something of an art contest with fire hydrants downtown, but last minute here, we got some information from the fire marshal's office that possibly it might be an issue with painting fire hydrants, as sometimes they're color-coded themselves to indicate to the fire department how many gallons of flow they have. So we're gonna revisit that with the
Okay.
bid and take a look at it again and see if there's a way around it or some way we could possibly do it to make it work so everybody would be satisfied.
Yeah, the idea was cool, but I'm glad we're being proactive. That
Yeah,
sounds like that was
it's-
a big issue, Tim.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna remove that item from the agenda, and next, and she's been waiting very patiently, and it's Debbie Wetzel with the Anti-Litter Committee. She's here to discuss the upcoming event reoccurring here in Riverhead, and I know you've been doing this for 20 years, And it's been many, many years, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of change, and we'll welcome you. And Catherine, did you want to add to the anti-litter?
It's finally
Yes.
the anti-litter, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, Frank's teasing me because I keep saying the litter committee, which is really not right. So let me just start off by saying that, you know, it's really great working with Deborah and the rest of the committee. I told Deborah this morning, she keeps us moving along. We meet a lot, we do a lot of work, we have a great committee. She's gonna talk a little bit about that, and then I'll add to it, but Deborah's been patiently waiting this morning, so without further ado, I'm gonna turn it over to her, and then I think she has something that you're gonna be ready with, correct?
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Supervisor. Thank you to the board for letting me speak today. I became chair of the Anti-Litter Committee in 2019. I started out working with Jim Wooten and Catherine Kent. We did 2 cleanups that year. We did one in the spring. We had 40 volunteers. It was still, I consider that a success, but the second one in the fall, it grew to 85 people. Now I'm working with Catherine, and we're up to 150 volunteers for our cleanup this Saturday. Great. How did we do that? We worked on the press release. We reached out to the media. We reached out to the community, the Riverhead bid, and the Environmental Committee. We also brought George Eldey, he's owner of Wines by Nature, into the committee. He's been instrumental. He organizes cleanups for Brookhaven Town. He usually gets about 400 people. So together, Catherine and I have also grown the committee to 8 people who are very passionate about this problem. I can't tell you the amount of emails that I'm getting from volunteers who are very upset about the amount of litter in town and really want to do something about it. As Yvette mentioned, I've been a resident for Riverhead for the past 18 years. I live at Willow Ponds. My committee would really like to work closely with the town at this point to make our beautiful community litter-free. One of my committee members put together a quick video of the problem. It was prepared by Jean Fallot. Let's take a look. Thank you,
Yeah,
Chair.
just before that comes up, I just want to clarify that George Eldey runs a big litter pickup. It's about 400 people. It's actually Riverhead and Brookhaven.
Okay.
That's how I first met George. I went to that litter cleanup to help, and I couldn't believe there were 400 people.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought we can build ours even bigger in the downtown Riverhead
Exactly.
one. And
Yep.
we've got a real great committee of go-getters.
Good. That's okay.
Devin, can we turn out the lights a little maybe, or? That's fine, thank you. Back to us. You'll be able to start it from the beginning? Yes. Okay.
is the property between Target and CVS.
That was done by Jean Fillo.
Right? Oh, no.
She actually had sent us an email about letter that sent an email to the board.
Right.
So I think we can all agree from that video, litter is a problem, right? The committee is specifically asking for the town's support to enforce the law, that property owners, retail establishments, specifically on Route 58, clean up their parking lots on either a daily or weekly basis. Law 245-7 says, and I paraphrase, every owner of a shopping center, retail establishment, restaurant, or office complex shall keep the parking area, landscape, and curbsides free of litter, paper, and debris of any kind. It's really sad to see so much litter. I drive around my town and I just shake my head. It really, I wrote here, I think this problem negatively impacts our town's image. I'm asking that we work with you on an action plan, which would include our business community. We feel 2 cleanups a year are great, but it's not enough to get this under control. May I ask you that as our elected officials, that you work with us on a strategy to keep our town clean? This Saturday, April 17th, I'm so pleased that we've been able to sign up close to 150 volunteers. This includes many concerned citizens, some of whom clean up their own streets on a regular basis. Taking part in our Earth Day cleanup, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, the Butterfly Project, the Riverhead Bid, Target, the Jamesport Civic Association, the Key Club, and First National Bank, just to name a few. It's really gratifying to me that so many people are concerned about the problem of litter. We have more than 35 streets, parks, and beaches that are filled with litter. And that's going to be our target locations. 35. All the streets that run from Main Street all the way up to Sound, in my mind, they're a disaster. Osborne, Roanoke are 2 of the worst ones. My goal is to have regular cleanups with the help of my volunteers, but we need your support, especially when it comes to enforcement, and we're going to need financial support for our supplies, for gloves, pickers, and bags. We've had great donations from ShopRite, Target, and Lowe's, pickers, bags, and gloves. Finally, another goal is education. We hope to work with the Board of Education, as we did in 2019, to speak to our young people, to hopefully create more awareness about preventing litter. And I'd also like to speak to our business community. I really feel that we can all work together to make our town better. Thank you again for your time. I look forward to working with all of you to make our town a beautiful, litter-free community. I welcome your comments and questions. And I just wrote another note to myself, if we can get a liaison in code enforcement, that would be one of our, I think that would really help what we're trying to do here.
You mean someone from code that's on the committee, or?
Maybe, Catherine? I mean, I leave that up to you to
Yeah,
see.
Yeah, I think I create the committees, and thank you for mentioning that. I will make sure that that happens. So would you please give me a call? And
Okay.
would you please give me a call and we can discuss further? Code, that's easily done, and I'm glad you brought up the idea. And the public should also know the same phone number that Tim mentioned. If there's any garbage, anything relating to code, people can call. It can be done anonymously, it can be done through mail, it can be done through email, it can be done through our town website. You can also call code enforcement. So you do have many avenues, and I myself have used that. I live off near a Doctor's Path, and that's a very common ground to dump stuff because it's across the street from a park. And every time that I've called or a neighbor has called, they are responsive. So if something it looks, out of line and it's disturbing and it's large in nature, we will either call sanitation, when we do have the resources, and we do have the connections, and we do have a system in place. So if anybody sees somebody dumps a substantial amount, there is a process in place. And just give me a call, Debbie, I'd love to talk to you,
All right.
and we'll get a liaison.
All right.
Perfect, thank you.
May I just ask in closing, what code enforcement does right now as far as the businesses?
Well, they were here, we can call them back in, but they do address different, exactly what you were talking about, businesses that do not clean in front of their sidewalk. They also address, if they say there's no snow removal, they'll address the codes on, can somebody get code, please? They'll address.
I think for the most part, they react to complaints by
Correct.
the
It's complaints.
citizens.
And visuals,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, so,
I
But
guess what I
think the
meant.
committee- Go ahead,
I'm
Deborah.
sorry, I guess what I meant is, do they go out to businesses on a regular
Yes.
basis and say, your property has a lot of litter on it? I mean, I don't mean to single out any particular company, but, that strip between Target and CVS has been like that forever,
Yeah,
Yvette.
and I'm gonna
It's
say
been
2
like
years
that.
ago, that was when I worked with a team, that was my spot that I was cleaning. And
Okay,
it's really disheartening to see how bad it looks. And I think what Deborah is saying and what the committee is asking, is that we take a hard line on people who are violating businesses that aren't taking pride in the community. A lot of the businesses do take pride in the community, but, when we have businesses where there is a lot of garbage, I think we need to take a hard line on it. And I did also want to mention, because you named out some groups, that Riverhead Building Supply also reached out to me, and they're joining in. They're actually going to be cleaning out on Berman Boulevard. Yeah, the idea of what Deborah's bringing forward is, it's one thing to have these big events where we have now built our group up to 150 volunteers, and that's all well and good. That's a great community thing, but the cleanup has to be ongoing. And if you watch the video, it talks about how, litter actually, it's tied directly to crime if people are looking at an area that doesn't look well maintained. Oh,
Well,
that's great.
I want to thank Debbie. I didn't ever have the opportunity to meet you, so it's really nice to meet you today. But I want to thank your committee, because not just for these events, but I literally notice people on Sound Avenue, on Osborne, Reeves, on any given day, a car will be hundreds of feet away from them, and they will have their litter pickers and their bags, and that's a real commitment to this community. It really is.
thank goodness we have people like
Yeah,
that, right?
and it's always been very impressive to me. I always wanted to pull over and say, "Hey, here's $100. Go get some more bags." but to know that there are people that take so much pride in the community is just wonderful.
It's
And
just,
there is one guy, you mentioned, because we both come the same way to work. There's one guy that cleans up along Osborne, and he cleans up on Sound.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now, but I did pull over a couple times and run over there and thank him. He's actually not part of our committee, he's just someone that lives in the area
Unbelievable.
and cleans
You'll
up.
see him
And there's
picking
someone in
up, and
Jamesport
you
that
wonder
does
how
it
he
too.
got there, and then
Yeah.
half a mile down the road, you
Yeah.
pass his car.
Yeah. Rich, what we're talking about was, what fines can be done, or what can be done about businesses that aren't keeping their area well maintained. because there are, I mean, we showed some, Deborah showed us some pictures of between CVS and Target, where the whole woods were filled with garbage. I know that you guys are able, you and I have had this discussion, and she was asking.
Yeah, so you just want me to kind of...
Yeah, come up to the mic.
Yeah, like what can we do through code enforcement? What ability do we have to
Yeah, so...
go after businesses?
Yeah, when we get these complaints, we do get them. We generally, as soon as we get it, we send out what's called a notice of complaint, okay? And that goes directly to the property owner, okay? And then that gives, there's a 5-day leeway with those. So they have 5 days to get back to us and contact us and let us know if they've remediated it or anything else that they've done. Should that 5-day pass, we or I automatically assign it out to an officer to go investigate it. Okay, then it gets looked at by an officer. If in fact they can't find somebody there to talk to clean it up, normally they'll talk to the Target manager or the CVS manager, who's ever responsible for the property. But sometimes you get the finger pointing, you know. I'm just a tenant here, it's not in my lease to clean it up or, you know, whatever. So what we do then is we will write a ticket to the owner of the property. Because basically the onus falls on them. We're not going to get into the battle of who's supposed to do what, as per their lease agreement. So we'll write a ticket to them. For the shopping plazas, I believe it holds up to a $500 fine. It might be more, I'll have to double check it, but I can look that up. So we have to serve the actual owner of the property, which is most of the time an LLC or a corporation. So there's some time, too, before you'll see any sort of remediation there, because the paperwork has to get to the appropriate people, and either it has to go to justice court.
And I remember we had the same issue a couple of years ago when we were talking about snow removal. Who gets the ticket, the owner or the tenant?
It's the owner of the property. Yep, yep. So,
Do you feel that we're levying fines and are the fines working? Because it just seems like, this is an everyday problem for a lot of these places.
yeah, and a lot of these places, yeah, they don't have a designated person to clean up the litter and garbage, and we find that routinely. So, I'll look at the fines and I'll see where we're at. And if we can discuss it with code revision to maybe increase the fines if we need to, you know?
Okay,
So-
thank you. Thank you very much, Rich.
And if you have something, that you can walk down to my office and I'll take a look at it for you, okay?
Frank's giving $100 for people to clean it up.
Yes, Debbie, so you do have
Oh,
the
yeah, that's
option, you have the option, and the community has the option, any code violation to use the means, and there is a system in place.
Okay.
And I think they were considering upping the fines, correct? Catherine, weren't you, we were gonna look at, what is it, chapter 263?
Yeah, we can certainly up the fines. Yeah,
Yes,
we'll talk about that.
Yes,
Okay.
that would be a great idea, because,
Let's get
The
that
fines
word
are-
out. Get out there and clean up your
Yeah.
garbage.
yeah, the fines are pretty low here in Riverhead compared to other townships. Myself and the councilman have reviewed them extensively, and they're actually about half in certain municipalities. And again, get the word out, hit them in the pockets, and things will change, and that's usually the normal course.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your caring and concern about this problem. And Yvette, I will be in touch with you.
Absolutely,
Thanks
have
a
a
lot.
good one.
Thanks,
I'll
Catherine.
see you
Thank you for
tomorrow.
your work and
Okay. I'll see you
organization.
then.
We appreciate that.
Thank
Yes.
you so much, Tim. That really means a lot.
It means a lot to us.
We
We
have
see the
some
job
great
that's being
people on the
done.
committee, very devoted to this issue, so I hope we can make some really good progress on it.
Great,
Thank you again.
take care.
I'll say
Have a
thank
good
you. I'll
day.
give a shout out to the junior ROTC program. They're going to be out there with you as well, helping.
Oh, yeah, last
So
time they
they'll
cleaned up at
participate.
Stotsky Park, and they
Yep.
were amazing.
They're
Yep.
great, yeah. My son loves being a part of that.
I will say that with the plastic bag law, we've seen a lot less plastic bags blowing around.
Yeah.
Yes.
And hung up in the trees, so that's working. That's one good part of that.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. All right, thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda, we have Greg Berman. He's going to come forward to discuss matters surrounding the Island Water Park project.
I'm
Greg?
going to take this opportunity to excuse myself from the conversation.
Okay,
Please call me back in when you are finished.
okay.
Bring us coffee.
Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Supervisor, members of the board. So we're here for a project update on the Island Water Park Site Plan Amendment project update. So just to refresh your memory, the town board is in receipt of a site plan amendment application, which is proposing to change the use of an existing building, which was previously approved for warehousing space. That's now going to be a commercial, sports, and recreation entertainment facility. The site plan is also proposing to create additional parking and perform related site improvements, including grading, drainage, and landscaping and lighting. The town board, back in August, classified the action as a type 1 action pursuant to SECRA and initiated a lead agency request and a coordinator review. To date, no objections have been raised to the town board's request for lead agency. The subject parcel is a approximately 42.5 acre parcel located on the south side of Middle Country Road in Calverton. It is located to the west of the existing western runway at EPCAL and is accessed by a 24-foot wide flag driveway off of Middle Country Road. At the beginning of March, the applicant did submit updated plans and information. Those plans are related to the full interior build-out of that space. Previously, they had kind of been trying to, I want to say, shoehorn their existing parking plan into an amalgam of permitted uses in that building. Since we have had some dealings with the Pine Barrens, and the Pine Barrens have now, in effect, been removed from jurisdictional authority on this project, they've now submitted a site plan and floor plans which show a full build-out of that interior space. Among that spaces, they're proposing like a Ninja Warrior obstacle course, rock climbing, and just really like an indoor entertainment and recreation facility. Due to the change of nature of that build-out and the intensification of the use, they have updated their site plans to provide the required additional parking. On March 31st, the applicant had submitted a traffic impact statement, which was prepared at planning's request. That report was dated March of 2021, prepared by VHB Engineering. I won't go through the whole 30 pages of traffic statements, but the important takeaway from that report was that they are recommending the inclusion of what they call exclusive eastbound and westbound turning lanes into the site along State Route 25. That will enhance the ingress and the overall safety of the state highway and the frontage of that facility. That was the only mitigation that was recommended by the report. They didn't recommend a traffic light or anything like that. So the plans that we have before us do not currently reflect those eastbound and westbound turning lanes. Those will need to be amended and included in the site plans, and as I understand, the applicant is working with the state DOT. I believe they've made their permit 33 applications to them, so we're working through that process to get that permitted. In terms of the excavation and importation of material, in order to bring the site up to grade, now I've been out to the site a couple of times. I went out last week with a member of the DEC Mineral Resources Division. To the south of the existing building, there's a large erosion channel, which is just washed out just from rainwater and the existence of the site. So they do need, and I want to make one clarification in my report, I called it an extension of a mining permit. That is inaccurate. I did speak with Bob Yeager from the DEC. What they're actually seeking from the DEC is called a mined land reclamation permit. Due to the previous mining that's taken place on the property, the reclamation permit is basically a plan for them to reclaim the lands, make them usable, make them viable. In relation to that, they will be taking out approximately 8,000 cubic yards of material from the western side of the on-site lake. That can be seen in Figure 2 on page 3 of my staff report. All of that material that's excavated from that lake and from the shores will be used and remain on-site. It will be used to fill those existing grades and some of those swales in order to create the parking lot that they require for the project. However, in addition to that 8,000 cubic yards that they are removing from the lake, the application does indicate that they will need to bring in approximately 5,728 cubic yards of material in addition to that in order to make grades. Now, for that amount of fill, they will require a Chapter 229 permit from the town board. There is a commensurate fee with that, and there's some additional requirements in the town code in terms of monitoring and how that is sort of inspected. In terms of the lake use and the proposed rope tow water ski, right now the site plans, the most recent revisions do not indicate the location of any of the rope tow mechanisms. There is a note on the plan that references non-motorized water sports, including canoes, kayaks, and rental sailboats. The applicant must detail, their full intent of the use of that lake. In terms of parking, like I said, the site plan had been updated based on the change of use. The total required site parking is now 359 stalls based on the total usage of that building, as well as the outdoor recreational use. They now propose a total of 360 parking stalls, including 8 handicapped parking accessible stalls and 16 employee parking. There is one minor inconsistency on the sheet. There is a detail which shows inaccurate sizes of the handicapped aisle and the accessible stall. That's a minor revision on the overall site plan drawings. They do scale out properly, so it's just a minor revision that needs to take place. In terms of the plan submitted, they identified the location of an existing water main which goes down that 24-foot wide flag lot. I believe that is just for domestic water service. Right now, they don't show any additional lines for any fire suppression systems, fire service, any sort of water fire hydrants. I have referred the plans to the fire marshal, and I'm expecting comments back from them that will detail what they'll need in terms of fire service. Plans were referred to the Suffolk County Planning Commission during the secret process. Suffolk County Planning Commission had no objection to it. It was referred also to the Health Department. We did not receive any response from them. Pursuant to seeker, if no objection is raised within 30 days, it's considered that that agency has no objection to the request. Again, we've consulted with the DEC. They're about ready to issue that mined lands reclamation permit. They're just waiting on approval from the town board to move forward. Again, just want to clarify, it is not an additional mining permit. That was one of my initial concerns when that was initially relayed to me. We hear mining, automatically it sends up red flags. So this is not, they're not going down additionally into groundwater. This is not a expansion of the sand mine. This is strictly to reclaim the lands that have previously been mined. As I said, there was a resolution which was adopted by the Pine Barrens in December of 2020, which pursuant to their comprehensive land use plan, section 9.2, basically, in essence, said that the Pine Barrens lacked jurisdictional authority within the fence at EPCAL, of which the Island Water Park project was part of that.
Greg, I just wanted to jump in there. There was actually a decision made in 2008 on the Pine Barrens, and actually Dawn, Dawn Thomas was the town attorney at that time.
Okay.
So that decision was actually made in 2008 when the town of Riverhead went against the Pine Barrens, and actually Island Water Park joined in the suit. And it was determined that EPCAL was exempt from the Pine Barrens review jurisdiction. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the entire legal history. I know they did receive, when this project, for the build-out, the original build-out of the site plan, they did receive a Pine Barrens hardship exemption waiver.
Right.
I'm not sure what legal
Right, but as
mechanism
far
they
as
get there.
Pine Barrens
but yeah,
having jurisdiction, that was decided in 2008, and actually the judge was Judge Baisley, and Dawn was the town attorney in that case.
So if anything, this most recent resolution just affirms that. So that kind of took them out. There would have been restrictions. They would have had to extend it. So they're off the Pine Barrens is out of this. So now we're just looking at terms of town code. We're looking in terms of the DEC requirements for those mined land reclamation permits. Again, there are some minor details and minor revisions that need to take place in terms of the site plan. Clarify the use of the lake. At this point, staff would recommend the issuance of a negative declaration, assume lead agency, and if the town board wishes, schedule a public hearing so we can move this application along and hopefully get some nice recreation use for the residents and get a good use on this property and finally get something going.
So I just want to say that certainly this property has a lot of amenities that I think our community would enjoy. This has been 10 years. Hopefully we can get this this moving forward. Certainly, because of the location, there've been a lot of questions environmentally. Just want to make sure that they're compliant with all the requirements. As we discussed, it is near the Pine Barrens, and it also is near lots of walking trails. But, you know, I think it's a good project to move forward. I think it's something that the people of Riverhead will enjoy, as long as we can make sure that all those, everything, that they're compliant with everything.
And I mean, just to clarify, the proposed project would not impact any walking trails. To my knowledge, those walking trails are not located on the Island Water Park property.
No, not on the property, just in the
Yes, I mean,
vicinity, I know.
there's
Right.
no anticipated impacts to any other public lands, any town lands, any recreational trails. I mean, if you've ever been to the site, it really is sort of self-contained, hardly visible from the roadway. You know, you really just see a driveway with some fencing. Yeah, so it's not anticipated.
Nice lake view when you're doing the bike trail.
Oh, yeah, no, it'll be
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I am going out to look at the site. I'm meeting them and looking at the site.
Greg, I thank you for bringing us the updates. I'm very excited about this project. I went out and toured the property. I was quite impressed, actually, on what it was that was going on, going back years ago to the original scheme of doing just the lake with the skiing. I thought that was pretty cool, too. But what they're going to do now is something that's going to serve a lot of needs, and I think it's going to be quite popular once they're up and running. So I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate the work they're doing out there and the work that you guys are doing to get this going along. So I think it'll be a good plus for the town of Riverhead.
Thank you. And
Yes.
we do have some representatives from the application here. We have Ken Myers, who I believe is the site project manager, Jeff Zahn, who's the architect, and it looks like we have a representative from J.R. Holtzmacher. If the board did have any questions that they'd like to ask them, I believe, you know, they're in here, we can pose some questions to them if you'd like.
Yes, I'd like to ask Ken Myers a question, please. Can you bring him forward?
Ken, can you hear us?
You have to unmute, Ken.
He's getting there.
Yeah.
Lower left-hand corner.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
I can. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I,
Almost afternoon, almost good afternoon.
Almost good
5
afternoon.
minutes
It's been a
short.
long morning for you.
So I do have a couple of questions. I had the opportunity to tour your facility a few months ago, and I was quite impressed by it. I understand that your project has taken on different versions, and now everything is tight. The DEC was there last week, I understand, Greg?
Yes, ma'am.
And they cleared this project with no, there was no,
I'm waiting. Bob Yeager from the DEC said he was going to forward me some draft language from the resolution from their permit. It had to do with grading, maintaining the slopes along the shore,
Okay.
doing revegetation plans to ensure that everything is safe and, you know, reclaimed. But all indications are that they're ready to issue that permit pending the town board's action on the site plan.
and I wanted to ask you, how is the community going to be engaged with your project? This is a huge project. I know it's going to bring a lot of employment opportunities, and I know you may have mentioned in the past, or I did hear that you wanted to engage the community, and I'm just curious how you're going to do this. I do know that I mentioned to you that I wanted the community engaged outside of just it being a sports park, and you said you were going to get back to me, so do you have any further thought on that, Ken?
Well, as you know, we're going to be providing 500-plus jobs, so that's going to be a massive impact on the community. Ancillary revenue of what we bring in from guests as they travel to see us will have an impact, but we're going to be far more engaged than that. I come from a background in hospitality, and I would go in and rescue restaurants or help hotels to get back. A lot of times that was from a disassociation with the community. They lost touch with their people. Fundraisers, internships. You have that great college. Suffolk County Community College has a fantastic program for culinary and hotel restaurant management. We'll be able to do internship programs, overall fundraising support, just the health and activity of what we're doing. This is a scratch kitchen. This isn't going to be food like you get at a standard carnival. This isn't carnival fare. It's going to be real, healthy food. The activities that we do in itself are interactive. They're going to be mentally and physically challenging for these kids and for these families. We're going to offer every single resident of Riverhead a discount coming onto the property to make it far more affordable for the local community as opposed to the people that we're bringing in from out of the area.
Wow,
Well, we
that's
like
impressive.
that.
We always like to hear that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and are you gonna collaborate with the hotels? Because this almost
Oh,
appears
absolutely.
like a destination, which you can bring people to downtown and to our hotels.
When you do what we're doing, our park is going to be, it's going to be tiring. It's going to take more than necessarily, not always, but more than one day. You get far more out of the park. So we'll have an opportunity, we'll have a relationship with the local hotels, even the local restaurants. Even though we're going to have a restaurant, people don't just want to eat on property. They're going to go, they're going to explore the town. They're going to stay in the town. We're going to have obviously have no choice. We're going to want to work a symbiotic relationship with all the hospitality avenues available in Riverhead, especially the hotels.
And I understand your services and whatever activities you offer are for all different age groups?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
It varies from we'll have minor little things like bumper boats and bumper cars all the way on, VR to rock climbing and the surf pool. Even the surf pool itself has 3 different levels. An amateur, just like me, I'm not good at that sort of stuff. I'd be able to go on the left side of the pool. Meanwhile, like someone who's competitive would be able to go all the way to the right side of the pool and actually get a very challenging experience. They're divided with lanes. They'll have its own lanes. It's going to be for us, we're not a kiddie park. If we have that for kids, we'll be able to facilitate 3 and up, say, but all the way up into whatever age, as long as you're active, you're going to be able to have a great time there. Never mind, there's going to be food. Everyone has seen the property. It's a beautiful property to explore. It's 40 acres. It's going to look like when we're finished, it's going to look like a park, like an actual state park. It's not going to look like a great adventure or something like that. It's going to be beautiful.
And what water activities do you have?
A lot of them were touched on. We have a surf pool, rock climbing, bumper boats, bumper car, the pull park, a pull cable park, so you can wakeboard on the park itself. Everything is electric run, bumper boats, paddle boards, anything that's on the water. Just we're not using any fossil fuels on the water. Everything will be electric based.
Not water skiing.
No, the water skiing's actually pulled like a cable. If you've ever been on a little bunny hill, it reminds you of what pulls you up. Rather than sitting on a chair, it's just a rod. You hold onto that. So instead of a boat pulling you, it's just a cable that's pulled across towers.
It's the tow rope when you're skiing.
Yes, yeah, but it doesn't require a boat. It's really cool.
Well, our water department head is an avid surfer, and he has volunteered to go to the expert side of the surf pool and show us how it's done, so.
We're gonna
I
see
want
if
a
he's gonna be
video
able to do
of
that.
that.
And he's here today.
I want a video of that one.
Yeah, me too. I'll make sure you all get one.
Good.
So just one important thing to touch on, as Ken stated, and I think it'll be important to memorialize in the form of covenants, is that the use of the lake, there will be no motorized equipment, no fossil fuels, no diesel, no gasoline. It shall strictly be, like he said, canoes, kayaks, paddle boards, that sort of thing, in order just to preserve the aquifer, preserve the condition of that lake. So I would recommend that being included as covenants that will be filed on the property as we move forward and get towards approvals.
I just wanted to ask you a question, Ken. I did tour your site. I think it's excellent, and I support the idea. I just had one thought when I'm reviewing your site plans as well as your building plans. You have a large area on the 2nd floor that specifically states that it's storage area. So, and then it goes out onto a beautiful deck that will be overlooking the lake and so forth. And I know that you're in the hospitality business, and I just didn't know, like, if it's going to remain as a large, it just seems like an overly sized storage area, so I'm not sure what you're going to store in there, but would it make sense to address it now while you're still in the planning stages, if that eventually someday would become some type of event storage space? I know it directly affects your site plan. So is that something that you need as storage space, or is it something that is empty space not being utilized now, but may grow in the future to event space? And so how does that address the site plan for, should we address additional parking now, or do you feel confident that that space will remain storage?
We were able to actually, we could have went with more parking. We followed up, Greg's advised us on how best to file, said what you guys look for and what you don't. That space right now we need for storage. There's a tremendous amount of things that are going to be out on the property that need to be brought in, and that's the only place we have it for now. Does that eliminate the possibility of wanting to do something with it in the future? No. But at this point, we're not prepared to do anything for it. Right now, we're going to need that storage. There's a tremendous amount. We're going to have retail space that we're going to need inventory stored. We've got 1 million life jackets, all sorts of material that are required that go out throughout that property. We're a year-round park, so we're not shutting down. It's not like we're just going to bring everything in and we're going to be year-round. So we're going to need that to service the 30 acres or 25 acres of things that are going to be on that park, whether it's the paddle boards, the bumper boats. That stuff takes up a tremendous amount of room, and I could show you that. When you toured, I think one of the bumper boats were there. All that stuff is going to have to be stored on site, and that's what we're going to use that for at this point. So I think it's premature to address it now, or we would have.
It just seems like a beautiful place to sit and to look out on your lake back there. And so
Oh, I don't disagree. We are, some of that seating upstairs is in the plans as potentially like overflow, but it really was more just like it's for the restaurant, especially with the social distancing. Originally, we had intended everybody being on the bottom deck, and literally my boss wanted that upper deck for just private events if he was doing something, and it is included in the overall space of the project, the deck. But that inside space, at this point, we're not necessarily doing anything with it. We're not planning on doing anything.
that's why I just thought if it was a matter of just adding a few more parking spaces, would it give you that possibility in the future to utilize it in a different way?
I'm never against adding parking, I promise. We have the room for it. We had a plan with 500 spots in it. But we tried to put the letter of what we were doing now without and we weren't necessarily doing the cable park this year, but we knew we wanted to have it available. And I know the question came up, what's going on with the lake? So we put that in the plans. We're going to most likely do that if we open for season, but that upstairs, we're not planning on doing anything for that, but we could adjust if you guys feel that's necessary.
Well, so there is a provision in the code, just for your reference, so the board's aware, the room on the second floor is approximately 3,500 square feet, as indicated on the floor plans. They are proposing 360 parking stalls. Now, that did include, I believe they included 60 parking stalls for the exterior uses, like the use of the lake and any other outdoor uses. There are provisions in the code which allow the reviewing board to land bank parking stalls. So if they do at some point in the future expand or change the use of that storage space to some other active use, it might not necessarily require the build out of additional parking. I mean, they could demonstrate where they could fit the additional parking. The reviewing board could have them land bank that, with an agreement to, if it's determined that they need to, they can build it out at a future time. So the change of that would not necessarily require the immediate build out of additional parking.
Just trying to be cost effective for you.
Can I also
I'm excited
mention-
about the project,
And
so.
proactive.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so. I'm happy, I wish you best of luck, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No other questions.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
So I did not have a chance to prepare. If you'd like me to, I can prepare a negative declaration for the board meeting on Tuesday. I can distribute that to you, try to get it done tomorrow, distribute the information, and we can move forward from there.
That would be fine with me.
That would be great.
Yes,
All right. Would you
Will be
like
fine.
the resolution to schedule a public hearing? Would you want to consider that as well?
We
Just
might
to-
as well go
I think
for
we
it.
should,
All right.
yeah, I think it would be good to schedule a public hearing.
All right.
That'd be great.
I will
Thank
do
you.
that, and I'll get it out to you tomorrow.
Okay,
Let's get
thank
it
you
done.
so much.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you and
Thank
be
you.
safe.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing the final product.
Us too. We really appreciate all your help. Thank you, guys.
Okay, and thank you for working with our community, because that was a big concern, and it's great to see that you have efforts in place.
It's not only good business, it's the right thing to do, and that's what we're going to do. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Guys, ready to go?
Okay, next we're moving on to Dawn Thomas and Anne Marie to join us concerning a grant funding initiative. with the town. And Frank, can you briefly introduce the item?
Yeah, so the CDA and Anne Marie and Lee Zeldin's office, I guess, were commiserating. There's some money available, a federal grant that could benefit the water district here in Riverhead, and I'll just turn it over to them. They know more than I do.
Yes, there were several grants. There
Yeah,
were
several grants, right.
and this
Yes,
is,
in addition to that opportunity, there's a number of other opportunities we're gonna try to get ready for. So what we wanted to do was an omnibus resolution. We want to do one for sewer and one for
It's hard to hear you. Yeah.
Good. Highway 2, to see what we can come up with, but we wanted to get ahead of things a little bit. There's a few opportunities, the WIIA, the intermunicipal agreement, those are currently closed programs, but we think with the federal funding, we're going to open them up. The one opportunity is a member item from Congressman Zeldin. We had a meeting about that last week, and we would like to send a letter in regarding that funding opportunity. There are some issues that were discussed at that meeting. I think we have a resolution to those. We'll be sharing that with you in our proposed letter, and I think we have a good path forward. We have some serious concerns about what's been pending, so we want to kind of furrow that out with you, but council can handle that with you too. And that's basically it, so just want to give you that heads up. I'm not going to have the resos for sewer and highway yet, but there's another project that we have to get your okay on. Joe sent you an email today. Congressman Zeldin's office has a transportation. They're looking for projects. They were looking for recommended state and federal projects. We don't have any in Riverhead, but they're transportation related, so we thought it would be a great idea to try to put the parking garage for the TOD into that, along with a pathway, bike and alt-trans pathway down to where the new apartments are being constructed, basically, so make a transportation project out of that, which it already is, combine those things and put a submission in, so you'll see an email about that, and if you're all okay with that, we're gonna go ahead and let that go too. So if everybody's okay with...
Nobody's better at finding money than you are.
Well, that's not true. I don't know if that's true, but we
Check with Chuck on that.
we work with every department in the town, and they often find the funding, or even our consultants find the funding, or other levels of government sometimes contact us regarding funding. So we try to do as good as we can. One of the issues that we have is getting our engineering squared away, because as you know, when we're doing grant applications, it's appropriate and important to have our costs all estimated. So we will be working with engineers to try to get costs for projects. We're going to keep you up to date on every piece of that. There won't be anything you don't know or aware of, but we want to just be able to get going and not have to do another resolution and wait 2 weeks for that and ratify stuff. And so we felt it was appropriate to do it now this way, and you'll be seeing a couple more coming down the pike.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Good, thank you, John.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah, no
for
problem.
all your
And
work.
hoping and praying for the DRI.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Lastly, we have matters surrounding e-filing option for grievances filed by the taxpayer representatives. For this, we have Bob Kosakevich, our assessors, Laverne Tenenberg, Meredith Lipinski, and Donna Brown. Uh-oh, we don't have the assessors, so can you?
Yeah, I'm not sure we need them.
We don't need them? Perfect.
If we do, then we'll call them in.
Okay. Good morning.
Hopefully there won't be a lot of questions on this.
Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. Robert Kozakevich, Town Attorney. Last year, as a result of what was happening, the Town Board on June 2nd, 2020, passed a resolution. It was Resolution 2020-238, wherein the Town Board agreed with the recommendations of the assessors as well as the taxpayer representative community that it would be logical to opt into an e-filing procedure. As part of that e-filing procedure, there was also an associated authorization for the supervisor to enter into memorandums of understanding with all of the taxpayer representatives that e-filing would be an acceptable way to resolve those complaints. So last year, I think it was somewhere between 6 to 7 taxpayer representatives entered into MOUs with the town of Riverhead and agreed to an e-filing system, which the assessors found to be very effective, productive, and worked well. So they are asking if you will do the same thing again this year. It would only be for taxpayer representatives. If I wanted to come forward and grieve my taxes individually, I would not be entitled to do it. If I use a taxpayer representative, and we know who they are, we get those little cards in the mail, do you want to grieve your taxes? That would be who it would be applicable to. So we're just looking to see if you would concur that that would make sense again. And if so, I'd like to get a resolution in front of the board for the next meeting on April 20th, and then obviously follow up with a memorandum of understanding with the taxpayer representatives at the appropriate time. The reason we want to do it now is so that we can get that squared away before, obviously, the assessment rolls, and that final assessment roll gets issued.
I'm sure there's a reason, I just don't know it. Why is it only tax representatives and not individuals?
It's because of the volume of stuff they file, and it just makes it easier to do it with the
It just
e-filing.
It limits it somewhat.
Yeah, yeah.
Bob, I have no problem with that. You could put in the resolution, I'm sure we don't
Yep,
have.
I support it.
6, 7
I support that fully.
applicants.
Anything that makes Laverne's job easier, I want to make
Yes,
sure
we
she
do.
does.
Good,
I'm good with that.
good, good,
Assessors know best.
Thank you, Bob.
good. As I say, I think it's fairly straightforward.
Yes, it
Thank
is. And all the towns are doing it, all the
All right, thank you.
supervisors are agreed to this. We'd be the only one not to agree on that. I don't think we want to do that. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, Devin, I think we're moving on to resolutions. There's quite a few of them today. Devin, can you please come forward and read the resolutions?
Okay. Everybody ready?
Yes.
Resolution.
Yes, we are.
Resolution number 1, publish and post bid for repair and resurfacing of tennis and basketball courts. Number 2, publish and post bid for corrosion control chemical, PO4, for Riverhead Water District. Number 3, amendment fee waiver request for special event Chapter 255, East End Arts Mosaic Festival. Number 4, approve special event Chapter 255 application for Scramble Inc., Scramble Runway Challenge.
Did we ever work out a rental fee for that?
No.
Is that done by CDA?
In the past, there were times where it was done by CDA. I did not talk to Dawn about that. I know that Dawn was very involved with it, so.
I did speak to Dawn, she said she was gonna work on it.
Oh,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Will we
It was-
have
It was
that
a little unclear when we left whether I was gonna be the one negotiating or not, so I apologize if there was a little bit of a drop in that way. But I'll speak to Dawn and I'll coordinate, make sure there's, obviously, it's gonna be subject to some numbers that we can bring back to the board.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to know that before I want to vote on a resolution.
Very good.
Okay.
So she'll have to do this before? Great.
Okay, all right.
That's a good point.
Resolution number 5, accepts the retirement of a police lieutenant. Resolution number 6, acceptance of 2019 audited financial statement. Number 7, sewer capital project number 20052, Riverhead Commons closure. Number 8, authorizes execution of contract with Seed Clam Administrator.
Okay.
Number 9, Calverton Sewer Capital Project Number 20044, Peconic Care Closure. Number 10, Sewer Capital Project Number 20045, 21st Century Oncology Closure. Number 11, Sewer Capital Project Number 20051, BJ's Wholesale Club Closure. Number 12, Sewer Capital Project Number 81901 at 1716 Old Country Road closure. Number 13, P&P bid for concessions vendors at Town Parks and Beaches 2021. Number 14, approves amended terms and conditions of court reporting services and authorizes the supervisor to execute a new contract agreement with the amended terms and conditions between the Town of Riverhead and Peggy Schieffer. Number 15, approves a utility easement and authorizes the supervisor to execute that utility easement with 331 East Main Street LLC for an underground vault to an electrical transformer to be installed by Long Island Lighting Company or PSEG Long Island. Number 16, approves amended terms and conditions of agreement for court reporting services and authorizes the supervisor to execute a contract agreement between the Town of Riverhead and Terry Tramontano Falcerdo. Number 17, awards bid for replacement of large meters for Riverhead Water District. Number 18, ratifies the appointment of an interpreter for Police Department and Justice Court. Number 19, awards bid for disposal and recycling of municipal solid waste. Number 20, reappoints PMA Management Corp. To act as the third-party administrator. Number 21, reappoints a seasonal water treatment plant operator. Number 22, Water Capital Project Number 60090, tractor supply closure. Number 23, Water Capital Project 82052, First National Bank closure. Number 24, Water Capital Project Number 82053, Northville Commerce Park closure. Number 25, Water Capital Project 82054, East End Disabilities closure.
Well, the department's been busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 26, Town Hall Project Number 82003, Riverhead Pattern Book closure. Number 27, appoints a water treatment plant operator trainee. Number 28, reappoints a temporary office assistant to the tax receiver's office. Number 29, authorizes the supervisor to execute early voting polling place agreement with Suffolk County Board of Elections for Riverhead Senior Center. Number 30, Town Hall Project Number 61901, Seniors Bus Purchases closure. Number 30, I think I read that wrong. That was number 30. Number 31, appoints a Senior Justice Court Clerk. Number 32, approves anti-bias task force listing as participant and co-sponsor of Stop Bias Program portion of Suffolk County District Attorney Office and Social Justice Committee of Temple Addis Israel webinar on hate crimes. Number 33, approves anti-bias task force request for approval for an event commonly referred to as the Synergy Program to facilitate improved communication between the Riverhead Police Department and Riverhead residents. Number 34, approves implicit bias training for anti-bias task force members, designated town officials and employees, and select representatives of the community, and authorizes expenditure of community benefit funds. Number 35, accepts the retirement of a senior water treatment plant operator 1B. Number 36, changes the status of part-time police officers. Number 37, Town Hall Project Number 40119, Justice Court metal detectors closure. Number 38, changes the status of part-time traffic control specialists. Number 39, ratifies authorization for the publication of a help-wanted advertisement for seasonal pump-out boat operators. Number 40, the Riverhead Recreation Department sets the fees for the 2021 Spring-Summer brochure. And number 41, Water Capital Project Number 20047, Plant 1 and 16 generators closure.
Oh, wasn't that bad? Great. Thank you, Devin. In a moment, I'll ask you to go into executive session. We are going to discuss one legal matter surrounding attorney-client discussions regarding post-litigation settlement in the matter of LIPA versus the County of Suffolk. That will be with Kasakevich. And 3 matters surrounding personnel, matters surrounding possible change in status of an employee, matters surrounding the possible change in status of an employee, and matters surrounding the possible change in salary of employee. Can I please have a first and a second to go into executive
No,
session?
I just wanted to make one announcement really quick. I just wanted to mention today is the Peconic Estuary Partnership Biannual Conference, which is a 2-day conference. Today's second day via Zoom. And I do want to say that I'm actually proud to be representing Riverhead, the town of Riverhead, in the climate change session as a panelist today. Thank you.
And a reminder that tonight at 6 o'clock is the town square Zoom meeting for everybody that wants to participate.
And in addition, we also have still, the survey is open. You can go onto the town website, and the survey takes about 5 minutes, and you can pick your choices of what you would like to see our future town square look like. And thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else? Great. Can I have a first and a second to go into executive session, please?
Motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Third.
All in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? So moved.
Aye, aye.
Everyone, thank you and be safe.